Hello, Ellie here. Welcome back to another episode of the Scalable Freedom Show. I'm so excited to be with you for this episode. This is the last one for a little while where you're going to get me voice only. I mentioned this in the episode last week, but we've had a few weeks out of the studio. This episode's being released, I think, the week after I get back from holiday in Port Douglas. We're taking the fam for a week. Just Sonny and I, we're going to meet Che's brother and wife and his two daughters who are 2.5 and 4.5 for an epic little resort week away. It's such good timing because, Sonny's over 2 now, and it's just going to be such a good opportunity for her to get to spend some time with her little girl cousins because they live on the Central Coast. We don't get to be with them that often. So I'm really, really excited just for all the family time by the pool for a week. But in the lead up to that trip away, there were a few things that just had to give inside the business so that I didn't make myself the cost. And one of those things was time in the studio, which is why you're getting a few of these episodes on audio. So really excited to bring you inside this episode. This is a little bit, well, it's definitely not a strategy episode. So if you're wanting more of a business specific episode, this one is not it. It's a conversation that I've been thinking about so much, that I've been having a lot with clients, I've been having a lot with friends, that is just based on something that I'm seeing everywhere online at the moment that I wanted to talk about because it is a hot topic for us as women, especially if you are a millennial woman, but even if you're not in that exact generation, if you're listening to this episode, there will be so many parts of this that you also identify with. Everyone at the moment is talking about millennial burnout, and I wanted to share exactly what I believe about freedom, work, and burnout in 2026. And I want to preface this by saying, if you know me at all or you've listened to this podcast for a while, you'll know that my default is not to buy into negative, fear-mongering narratives where it's like, dread and just the way it is or whatever else. And so this is not one of those episodes. This is designed to be more of a, all right, if there's a collective narrative around this thing, let's talk about why it is and how we make sure that is not happening for us in our life. So right now, there's a really big conversation that I'm seeing everywhere about millennial burnout. It's been happening for a few years, but there's just this period where it's ramping up at the moment, and I'm seeing a lot of conversation about millennial burnout around millennial women high-performing, ADHD tendencies, just this real narrative around that. And of course, my algorithm is favoring that because I fit into every category of, being a woman who is in sandwich generation, who's got aging parents combined with young children, and for me, running a business. This is not a new conversation. In fact, when I Googled it, I went to Google it to find out how long people have been talking about millennial burnout for, and I found articles that dated back the last 5 to 6 years. There are 3 specific reasons why I wanted to record a podcast episode talking to this. The first is that I literally trademarked the term scalable freedom, and I work with millennial women all day, every day professionally. So it feels like an important conversation to insert myself into. And the second one is, like I mentioned before, I myself am a millennial with a toddler. I have around 40 clients. I'm in the thick of the sandwich generation who is not burnt out, and also, though, who totally appreciates that I could be if I didn't consciously ward against it. So I feel pretty equipped to speak on this topic. And the third is that I think the internet has lied to us about freedom, and I want to have a real conversation about what freedom is and what it is that I believe we are chasing, and where I think maybe we're chasing the wrong things, and how we can come back on course. This is, of course, just a conversation about my own perspectives. I'm going to share my own examples and values and relate it to my own life so that you've got the opportunity to pick and choose what is right for you. But I really do believe that the internet has fed us a lie. And when I think about the purpose and the concept of scalable freedom, the whole reason this terminology exists, the whole reason I created that concept is because I wanted there to be an opportunity for women like you and I to define exactly what type of freedom we are scaling for. Like, what are we optimizing for in our lives? What does freedom look like for us? And building the type of business that runs and exists alongside a life of freedom, whatever that freedom is for us. Before we go into it, let's just talk a little bit about the story. So I keep reading headlines everywhere at the moment about millennial burnout, the rise of the woman who's built a working profession and is suddenly reassessing everything. The woman in her late 30s or her 40s who feels like she doesn't know what to do next in her career. You know, the woman who is constantly tired, she's a wife and a mother, she's maybe losing her ambition. That story seems to be in so many places right now. Not only is it a story that I see everywhere online, but in reality, it's something that I'm seeing from people as well. I could cite on two hands people I know who are deeply feeling that reality right now. And there are so many reasons for it. We could say that it is because of that sandwich generation that I mentioned before. We could say that it is because of rising household costs. We could say that it is because of economic market. We could say that it is because of social media and seeing so many other examples of life and comparison in a way that we've never seen before. There are so many reasons that we could say this is a thing that is occurring. And as somebody who has personally got a toddler in a working household, we are in a season of life where we're building wealth for our family. That's a really big priority for us. We are both working really hard in our passions. We're wanting to be really present parents. We've got a lot of conscious things that are competing for our attention. I can truly see how if I wasn't being present and bringing intentionality to what I'm doing, I could be really burnt out in my life. And I wanted to talk a little bit about this because I think it's a really important conversation that we need to have right now. I think there are a few things that for me are really helping me to stay mentally equipped and energized and not burnt out. And, you know, I work with women navigating perimenopause who, like me, have navigated conception journeys, sandwich generation, again, competing priorities, AI fears, seeing how everyone else lives. And what I think people start asking is they ask, how do I actually create freedom? And they look at the things that they need to let go of in their life. Because the internet will tell you that freedom equals time and money to do whatever you want, whenever you want. But I've seen so many people who create that. They create the clear calendar, they create the money that isn't attached to having anything, you know, having to do anything with it. They create this openness of time. And what I've seen for many of those people, not all, but many of them, is that those people aren't actually any happier. What I believe instead is that freedom is about creating a life where you live deeply within your values. Because when you're living a life inside your values, you're going to be optimizing for what you actually value. So as an example, for me, my top values are family, personal development and growth, and abundance. In fact, these are actually our household and shared values that I have with Che. So we have others, but right now those are our top three for us in our relationship, in our partnership, and the way that we live, you know, our family life. And so there are a few things that I want to bold and underline based on these being my values. The first is that my work is genuinely my mission. And as a bit of a kind of side story, I just want to share with you something that came up for me a couple of weeks ago because it ties in so perfectly to this conversation here. And that is that a few weeks ago, I experienced what I could say is probably the first time I have ever asked myself, is my business actually what I want right now? Is my business actually the thing that I want right now? Is this version of my business actually the thing that I want right now? I started asking myself those questions, and for the first time in my life, playing with what it would look like to not live inside my current reality. Whenever people talk about wanting to burn their business down or talk about the conversation of, you know, if you don't want to burn your business down at least a few times a year, then are you really a business owner? I've honestly never really been able to relate to that. I've always been so deeply committed to my path, my journey, where I'm at in my business. I've never really been able to relate at all to that conversation. But for the first time ever, a few weeks ago, I started to feel that way. And I was sharing this with my clients this week because I knew I would talk about this publicly at some point, and I really wanted to tell them first. And, you know, it coincided with a few things personally. Sunny's in a really big season at the moment, and there was a week there where I was waking up and I felt like I was just navigating responsibility and showing up for other people in a way that felt like a lot of responsibility from the moment I opened my eyes until the moment that I fell asleep. And there were just a whole bunch of things that kind of compounded for me to go, what do I actually want next? I also, we want to have another baby at some point soon, as I've shared here. And I know what the next level of scale inside the business looks like. And it was like that path and trajectory has been mapped out for so long that I hadn't really deeply connected back to my soul, my purpose, my mission, and tuned in again and gone, is this actually what I truly want? Or am I just moving forward with something that was decided for me, by me a long time ago that isn't actually true for me anymore? I really had to stop and ask myself those questions. And I allowed myself to sit and journal, and I'm laughing because what came out was just so silly, but yet so aligned for me. What actually came up for me in that moment was when I sat with myself and I started writing out, like, what actually do I want in my life and in my work? Like, if I could do absolutely anything for work and in anything in my business, what would it look like? And what I wrote out was I would want to coach and support women to create really transformational change. I basically wrote out exactly what I do already with my clients in terms of helping them create massive transformation. And then I also mapped out a little bit about allowing myself to be fully expressed and creative in how I show up online without, having to run things through the filter of, is this right for my brand? Is this the right thing to say? Is this like the right hook? Whatever, just all these extra things and layers that I've put on top of my work that don't need to be there. So what I actually got to was my mission still exists and I am doing work that is genuinely my mission, but there are moments that I have, and I was able to kind of pluck myself out of this before it became something that was a problem. But there are absolutely moments where I could fall into the burden and responsibility and shackles that I place on myself that actually make my life and my work hard when it doesn't need to be that way. Things like, running filters of, did I do this right thing for this client today? Is that hook right for this post? Like, if I just remove all that extra bullshit that no one else tells me I need to do, by the way, it is all on me. If I remove all those extra layers and shackles and pressure, then I get to run the business that is true and right for me and absolutely my mission in this lifetime. And so I wanted to share that story with you as an example of how we can absolutely get off course and how, what I know to be true is that burnout happens when we stop having fun. Burnout is not that we're working too hard. It usually happens when we're doing work that we don't enjoy or that we don't find fun in any way. Obviously, there will be work in business that is not fun, but as long as it's not all the work that we're doing. And if that happens, that's usually when we're going to fall into burnout. We're doing too much. We're not doing work that is fun. We're putting pressure on ourselves in ways that we don't need to. And so for me, my work is genuinely my mission. I forgot that for a moment about 3 to 4 weeks ago. I had to remember, but I do think that if, like me, you've forgotten that, this is your opportunity to remember that, because that is what millennial burnout, it could be happening for you if that's absolutely true for you. Or it might be that you are not doing work that genuinely feels like your mission. Like if you're having to show up in a business every day where you feel like you're putting filters on, you're sharing about something that is not congruent with what you actually embody, all of that is going to get really exhausting after a while. And so I invite you to sit with, are you doing work that is genuinely your mission? Because if not, that could absolutely be something that is contributing to that feeling of millennial burnout. Now, the second one is, again, coming back to this values conversation. And, for the record, the overarching message of this episode is that I really believe that we are moving further and further away from what freedom is for us and moving closer towards burnout if we don't actually live a life that is in alignment with our values. The second thing I want to say to that is that my family is my top value. And so for me, genuine free time and a free calendar is actually the direct opposite of that. So because I know, like I said to you before, my top values are family, personal development and growth and abundance. If I look at what, say, a free calendar would be, and I look at my value of family being my number one priority, those two are often, they're in direct contrast to one another, because family being my top priority, that means that I am in a season where being with my toddler, being with my family, being with my, parents as they're getting older, that's really important to me, which means that there is absolutely layers of responsibility that come with holding that. And I would not trade that for anything. And so in moments where it feels like it's maybe a lot that comes with it, I remind myself of how deeply that is actually my number one value. And it instantly attaches me or brings me back into my highest self and reminds me, actually, this is what holding a big life looks like for you. Like, this is your deepest, greatest joy. And the third thing I wanted to share here is, we are prioritizing building wealth in our family. Che and I, neither of us come from families with money. We're not going to inherit wealth. And so because of that, we know that if we want wealth in our lineage, in our family, it's up to us to create it. And that is something that we're really strategically doing. Like, it's something that we talk about, think about, actively do and create every single day. And again, if that's our priority right now, we are in a season of creating that wealth, which looks like trading off time to build wealth over the long term. We are in our years where that looks like working to build wealth for our future. It doesn't start passively, like you got to do the time first, and it absolutely compounds with your expertise and then your investment portfolio, like all of those things. In my late 30s, I just know that there are no cheat codes and no shortcuts to this that aren't like get really good at your thing, become an expert in your thing, be able to charge well for your thing, and get enough reps in of your thing, allow that money to compound, create generational wealth. I just know that to be true so deeply at this point in my life. And so as you can hear, like doing work, showing up for family, creating generational wealth, like all of those things are so deeply aligned with what a full, rich life looks like for me, and so in alignment with my values. That to me is scalable freedom. As somebody who is seeing that wealth be created, we have created net worth of multiple millions, and we know exactly what our final wealth number looks like. It's a number that we're working towards. Having created a family that I love with a desire to bring in another baby to that, like all of those things feel so congruent with what scalable freedom looks like and is for me. And I know that at times it can feel like it's really big to hold, but I wouldn't trade that in for, say, scalable freedom that looks like moving to Bali and having a clear calendar, because that is not what a scalable freedom life looks like for me. And so therefore, in moments where it might feel like I'm holding a big life, I step back into my highest self, my purpose, my mission, and I'm able to clearly see I asked for all of this. Like, I am here to live this out. I'm here to, be in this and hold this and move through this. And it like snaps me out of anything feeling heavy, and it allows me to really approach it through this energy of magnetism and lightness and joy. It just allows me to transcend so much of the heaviness that can occur if you get bogged down in the day-to-day rhetoric of, holding a lot in your life. Now, if any of these stopped being my values, I can absolutely see how there are times where I could genuinely get burnt out, because holding those things without that clarity of it being your values, without it being what freedom is for you, it can feel like it's holding a lot. It's like, I hope you can really hear what I'm saying here around there is a difference between holding those things and the density of that. I've got so many clients, I've got the toddler, I've got a big house and married, like whatever, or holding it through the lens of what absolute joy that I've created this life where I have all of this magic around me that is in alignment with my values. I get to do work that is aligned with my highest good. Like the lightness, the magnetism, the ease of that is a completely different energy. And I think that a lot of the reason we are seeing people leave the coaching industry and the online space or feel burnt out, or people who are in this millennial burnout, is because they aren't living in alignment with their values and what freedom actually means for them. For me, freedom means financial freedom. It means spending time doing work that makes me feel purposeful and impactful, and it's building a family that is my personal legacy. And if I feel tapped out, which absolutely can happen because I'm human. It is about anchoring back into that really connects me back to my mission, my purpose, what scalable freedom is for me. So just to come back to the intention of why I created this episode, I really wanted to join in on this conversation and share some of my thoughts about why I think we're seeing some of this burnout. And I wanted to invite you to play with what scalable freedom looks like for you. I want you to invite you to consider what are the values that you want to live in alignment with when you're feeling like you're in your highest good, when you're most in alignment, when you're most magnetic, when life feels most easeful. What are those values that you can connect back to that are going to help you get so much clarity on how you want to live your life and also how you want to spend your days? And then the last question to you is, if you are feeling tapped out, what does it look like to bring you back? What does it look like to anchor you back into your highest state of being, into that person who is really, really clear about what it is you're creating in your life and what success looks like for you in your life right now? I would love to hear from you from this episode. If there's one takeaway from this, I don't want you to go and download anything. I don't even want you to subscribe. I actually just want you to come into DMs and tell me what resonates for you here. Like, what does scalable freedom look like to you? Or what are the values that you're optimizing for right now? Send me a DM at Ellie H. Swift. I would just love to hear that. We've got so many new podcast listeners at the moment. So many of you have come across recently, whether it's from collaborations that I've done. We've just got a lot of you. So come on over. It would be so great to connect with you and hear more. I can't wait to do that. And I can't wait to see you in my DMs. Have the most amazing, amazing day ahead.